Hey guys, so I want to introduce a new opening to you today. I just discovered it quite recently. I've been watching a lot of Eric Rosen's videos and it's one of his absolute favourite openings. This is as black and it's called the Stafford Gambit. So I tried it out recently, and what I tend to do when I try something out new is I'll study a few videos, then I'll maybe go into a blitz tournament so I can get lots of different practice and try and get it in. Have a few goes, see how it works out, and then later on use it more seriously in my rapid games, because 30 minutes is my preferred kind of time slot. So I'll show you how it opens, and you'll get this quite often, which is a nice thing. I haven't got a lot of brain power to remember lots and lots of openings and theory and stuff. I don't know about you, but I think if you can get an opening that you're going to find actually works out, and that you get to do it fairly frequently, then so much the better. So it starts with e4, e5, most common response to e4. Then white plays knight to f3, and black, you respond then with knight to f6. This is the Petrov Defense, also known as the Russian game. Okay. Now what you're wanting is you want the classical variation, which is knight takes e5. It's a free pawn. Why not? And there are lots of moves here. There's like you've got queen e7 has been played, stuff like that. But the Petrov Defense, sorry, the Stafford Gambit proceeds with knight to c6. Now white's thinking, okay, well, my knight in the middle of the board is under threat. I've just grabbed a free pawn. If I now proceed to capture this pawn, this knight here, then black's going to have to recapture and mess up his pawn structure, which is exactly what you want. Okay, so white captures and you recapture with the d pawn. Now this is now the Stafford Gambit, and what's interesting about this is that there are an awful lot of ways that white can go wrong from this point. So white will quite often be thinking, I've made a decent start in this game. I'm not doing badly. I'm a pawn up. I've got all my pawns on the board. I've exchanged a knight. Black's got a lot of space here in the middle of the board. His pawns aren't looking too good. And he's got these double pawns on the c-file. So, life's looking rosy. But let's just take a look. So from this position, if I go... So if you're on chess.com, look at this. So on the Explorer here, so I'm in Explorer, I have lost one game as black from this point. Okay, and this is from every game I've played on chess.com, so it includes the blitz games that I started practicing with. Okay, hang on, what's that? I've lost one with the following move, knight to c3, and that's it. So I'm going to take you through now a few quick games in the Stafford, and we'll just whiz through like the beginning and see how easy it is for white to go wrong from this point and for black to get an advantage. Okay, so this is, I think, the most recent game I've played. This is a 30-minute game against DC Express, rated 1256. So e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to f6, takes, knight to c6, takes. Okay, this is our starting position. Now, the next move obviously very much depends on what white does. In this case, e5 looks like a sensible option. White's thinking he can kick the knight away, maybe follow up with d4, get a nice centre and solidify his advantage. But it can go very wrong, as you'll see here. So knight to e4, d3 is logical. Let's keep kicking the knight away, but then there's a surprise. Bishop to c5, and if white goes ahead and takes the knight, then he's in a world of pain. This is quite a classic common theme. When you've got a bishop looking down on the on the f pawn, whether you're playing as white or black, you've got this idea of capturing from there. Now, if the king recaptures the bishop, the queen falls, right? However, if the king moves to e2, then black has the light square bishop flying out to g4, skewering the king against the bishop, against the queen. The king will probably have to take the bishop anyway, and then you win the queen, right? So in this game, white thought for a while, nearly a couple of minutes, lost his queen. This is actually a really good game, and really, you know, from this point on, it was all one-way traffic. Okay, so I won't bore you with how that one finished, because it went on for a while. But white was on the back foot the whole time. Okay, here's another one. Okay, we've got our starting position. Now d3, okay, for move 5. Now if d3, very common move is going to be bishop to c5. Bishop to c5 is looking down on the f2 square. Here the bishop comes out, and h5. Okay, bishop to g5, and then queen flies in. So obviously we've got a threat of queen takes f2 check. We've also got a threat of queen takes b2, potentially winning the rook. White castled, and actually instead then of going in and grabbing the b2 pawn, I thought, let's just keep the pressure on. So knight to g4. And if you look now, what we've got here is we've got 1, 2, 3 pieces all looking down on the f2 pawn. But the f2 pawn is only defended by 2 pieces, obviously the rook and the king can't be the second defender if there's too many attackers, you know. So that's looking very, very dangerous already for white. So white tries to kick the queen away with c3. Queen to e5 is now threatening queen takes h2, checkmate. So white is forced to exchange the light squared bishop off for the knight, because the knight is part of that attack. Remember, always keep in mind, this f2 pawn is pinned, right? Because the bishop is on that key c5 square looking down at that king. Okay, now I've got a choice. I can recapture with a pawn, I can recapture with my light squared bishop that's still undeveloped on c8. I decide to capture with a pawn because it brings with it the threat of mate in 1. So we still have the renewed threat of queen takes h2, checkmate. Then this is just clearly a blunder. Bishop comes down. White missed the danger, and queen to there is a beautiful and very quick checkmate. That's 11 moves. Moving on to the next game. So here, this is a 5-minute blitz game. I'm playing somebody rated 875. So I think this is in a tournament. This is when I'm just starting to cut my teeth on the Stafford Gambit. Standard opening. Now here we have knight to c3. Knight to c3, bishop to c5 is the move. Followed up with d3, and now my knight comes in. So very common attack. Got a knight and a bishop doubling up on the king's f pawn. Here bishop comes out, knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes. So I've won my pawn back. Queen moves out. Bishop just moves to d4. Queen moves again. I castle, and you can see here this missing f pawn is going to cause white some problems. So white's now thinking, let's see if we can castle on the queen side. So I start to push up the board. I'm thinking, if he's going to castle queen side, I'm going to just start pressing on that queen side to cause him some stress. I'm rated over 400 points higher than this guy as well. So he plays a4, then b4, attacking the knight. Knight moves out of the way. I could now have just grabbed the b2 pawn. Lots of checks, and here is another very, very interesting pattern. Definitely one that you should be memorizing. Okay, so if you've got the h and the g pawns like this, right, and you've got the opportunity to capture on g3 or g6 if it's the other way around, then you can go ahead and capture, because if the pawn recaptures, then you've got queen takes rook. Okay, so you can't do that. Moves the knight into the way, and this is pretty much the end of the game. Yeah, black is forced to move his king and is in a world of pain. My king is beautifully protected in this corner here. White's pawns are all over the place. He now can't castle queenside because he's moved his king, so the game is very clearly lost. Here's the next one. I'm playing so I was rated 1354. I'm playing Orange Pigtail, rated 1338. Same opening. Okay, and these have all been played in the last week, right? So again, knight to c3, bishop to c5, and now bishop to c4. Standard opening move. Knight comes in with the familiar threat on f2. And here, king castles. So remember, we've got a bit of a theme going on here. We've already got those two pieces lined up against f2, right? So what we want to do is keep the pressure on. So now we've got queen to h4. So I'm threatening. I've now got three pieces that are looking at f2, and I'm also threatening mate in one. So it's a horrible, horrible situation. Okay. What can white do other than push h3, and now knight takes f2, so now I'm attacking the queen, and I'm also threatening that the moment that this knight moves, it's going to come with a discovered check. So white plays d4, and I grab the queen. Bishop comes in, captures f7 with check, but white is already a queen down, and gets another bishop for his trouble, but I'm still 5 points in front. Okay, so I exchange the knights. He's now got 3 pawns on the c-file. Very, very horrible place to be. I grab another free pawn, comes in with check, that's okay. And now I'm actually forced to give up my queen. So this was a bit of a blunder. So I was thinking too much about attack here, not enough about defense. However, let's see how the game works out. So material is now pretty equal. White actually has one extra pawn, but has these horrible triple pawns on the c-file. I grab another pawn. And now, although I'm still a pawn down, I've got these lovely pawns ready to go up the A and the B files, and there's really nothing now much white can do. My king's coming in, and that's nice. And white's basically run out of time here. He can't get a pawn through at all, so this is going to be the end of the game very soon. And now this is really interesting, because one of the things that I've been really focusing on in the last few weeks is winning games from a winning position. It sounds ridiculous, right? But the number of times when I've got overexcited, like clearly in this game, I've managed to achieve an advantage, and yet I end up doing a stupid stalemate or getting checkmated simply because I'm failing to think about the threats. I'm just thinking about my opportunities, right? So you always got to think about the threats, always got to keep in mind what dangers there may be. So here I'm saying to myself, I've got 23 minutes on the clock. Come on, Ben, finish the job, right? Make it good, make sure, because I got stuck with a stalemate the other week from a completely winning position, and that stuff hurts, you know. So I'm absolutely making sure here, and then clearly a very, very simple back rank checkmate there. So lessons to learn from that game. This is Tiexler, rated 1239. And again, same start. Okay, knight to c3. Bishop comes out to c5. Bishop comes out. Here, I play the bishop out to attack the queen. And I'm playing here d7, so queen to d7, probably preparing to castle queenside, and also adding a second defender to this bishop. Okay, but you can see already I've already got 3 minor pieces out in the board, and my queen, and I'm ready to castle. White is very behind on development, and let's just go back to the beginning and see how this all works. Right, this is one of the kind of fundamental. This is the essence of gambits in some ways. Okay, so I'm giving up the pawn. Right now, what you'll notice is White's king's knight has now moved twice. Okay, so with this move, White's the knight moves again, and I recapture. So looking at the situation, White has no development. I've got my knight already out on the board. White does not have any pieces out on the board. Okay. Now we have 1 each. Now I have 2. Now he has 2. Now I have 3. Okay. Now he's moved his bishop again. Right. Now I move my queen out, and I'm ahead in development. That's the whole point. Okay. Now with this, so this is a 30-minute game, but I'm rated like 140 points. 160 points higher than my opponent, so I'm thinking let's have some fun with this. So I go in with the, so basically the risk is here obviously that after e5, if my knight moves, then he's got 2 attackers. He's got the bishop and the queen lined up on there. So basically I've allowed one of my defenders of that bishop to be kicked away. So I go in. So this is, if you've seen my video on the Traxler counter-attack, that's the kind of mentality here. So I want to go in there, force the king to move, and then follow up with my attack. Okay. So queen comes into d4 with check. There's no way to block it, so the king has to move. Queen f4 now. He can block, but that gain of tempo by launching that counter-attack has allowed me time to move my knight out of trouble. I'm still actually a piece down. Okay. But White's king has already moved. Right. My king is still able to castle. His is not able to castle. So we've got a game on here. So I move my queen back. Oh yeah, because the with d4 has exposed a discovered attack on the queen. So the queen moves back, maintaining the pin on the white bishop. King moves. I take the bishop. If queen takes now. So I had the option of queen takes and then g takes, leaving white. But it's not really an isolated pawn, because this pawn could have come in and actually helped to secure the centre, and that wouldn't have been too good. So I move instead my queen back to g6, where it's now eyeing up c2 as a potential capture, which would really break black's, because he's got a pawn island here of 5. It's not yet joined together. If I can get that, that would be really good. He doesn't allow that. I go ahead and castle. Bishop comes in to attack my rook, block with the pawn, and now another pin. This time, so now I've got 2 attackers, if you see, on this knight here on e4, and the knight cannot move. Okay, and white only has a dark squared bishop left on the board, so he has no other way of defending that knight. King has to move. I grab the knight, pretty much equalising in material. I'm still a pawn behind, but I'm in a nice situation now. Pawn captures, move my rook across. Rook captures, and now I've got, I think, a threat of f7. Did I see it? I know. I grab the rook. grabbing a bishop. Ah, give up my queen again. Look at this. So a much better move here, I think, would have been rook to f7, attacking the queen. No, that wouldn't be a good move, because rook to e8 would then have been checkmate, because my rook here on f7 would be blocking my queen's defense of e8. So I grab that, completely missed the horrible attack there. So I've given up my queen. I'm not that far behind in material because I grabbed the bishop, so I've got a rook and a bishop. For the queen, I'm still only really a pawn behind. But let's see how the game ends. Queen comes down. This is a blunder, surely. Queen comes down to f7, allowing rook to f8. So white then proceeded to blunder his own queen just a couple of moves later. And now, fairly straightforward endgame. I've got pawns on the king side of the board, one pawn on the king side, 4 pawns on the queen side. White has these awkward multiple pawn islands, so I should be able to secure this quite easily. So now my knight can dance around the whole board. One of the nice things about knights is they can actually reach every square on the board, unlike a bishop. So I'm just pressing forwards, trying to secure my advantage, and now that h-pawn, there's really nothing white can... I just let white grab the knight, because that h-pawn is unstoppable now. Comes in with check. And then it's a formality, just being careful not to do anything silly and get a stalemate. So there we go, game over. And then one last game. This is Moshe Weisman, rated 921. So you find this at many levels of chess, you know. So here again we've got a knight c3 game, bishop c5, bishop c4. Here I castled, right? So maybe it's a better idea to keep developing, rapid development, focus down on that f2 square. But so I castled here. This pawn is now on pre, because I've got the bishop and the queen looking at it. So I capture the queen, captures. Bishop comes out. I grab the bishop, and now, you know, fairly standard situation. Materials equal. White's got 2 horrible isolated doubled pawns in the middle of the board. I've already castled. White has not castled. So what I want to do now is I want to prevent my opponent from castling, clearly, because that is the imbalance in the game. That is an imbalance that is in my advantage, right? So because I'm castled, he's not, I want to maximize the benefit and really, you know, drive home the pain of that disadvantage that he's got. Okay, so bishop out to g4 is preventing him from castling queenside, which is where he would want to go. He's got more pawns on that side. His king would be a lot safer compared to over there on g1. So he castles kingside. I attack the bishop, bring up my next pawn. Now I'm attacking the pawn on e4 twice. Rook comes out. Now, how is that not a blunder? Am I just giving away my bishop? I think because this is a blitz game, I think I'm playing a little bit casually. Grab a pawn. Okay, so I'm now 2 pawns kind of behind. So white has the extra bishop. I'm still a pawn up with a better pawn structure. Pawn comes in, gets taken. I'm not too concerned about this. So one of white's other weaknesses is obviously exposed king now. Come in there, I grab. This is a scrappy old game, isn't it, really? But I should be able to win fairly comfortably, and there you go. Yeah, that's a check. I think my opponent resigns at that point. Okay, so there you go. The Stafford Gambit, lots and lots of fun, lots of opportunities to attack. It doesn't take much to study. The principles from that, move 5, are fairly straightforward. Really, it's a case of developing pieces, attacking that f2 square, and just enjoying harassing and distressing your opponent. So enjoy, I'm enjoying it, and I'll see you next time.